One of the aims of this paint-off is to encourage people to engage more in the craft and the skill of painting. Skill and representation in art is very undervalued, not by the public themselves or even by artists themselves, but by people who dictate what art is important and what art is not important.
I would consider painting from life a privilege. It's because these days we all have photographs already available for us, and having a living and breathing human in front of me is something that's very rare. So today we're gonna have 4 hours of uninterrupted painting from the models, no photographs allowed.
They only have 4 hours to express a lot, and that's already a pretty daunting task. So something has to be compromised.
If you're wanting to know what I'm looking for that might look like a winning portrait, as an artist, I like a bit more rock and roll than I do like classical music. I want to see a personality and expression in the painting.
I'd like this to have a real focus on the skill and the craft of painting.
3, 2, 1, go!
I love alla prima. I love its kind of freshness. I think usually, because my project usually takes so long to paint, so I do in layers and then I wait until the paint is dry until I adjust it. Whereas now, because I'm doing alla prima, I have to think about what I can achieve in one sitting and to incorporate the final kind of finishing touch into what I'm doing right now instead of next week. My name is Maud. I'm interested in portraiture and figurative art, and I mainly paint in oil, charcoal, and I also use graphite.
So is that normally how you work?
I've been practicing and I've been really stiff. Usually I try to find like really specific shapes and stuff. So I'm trying to do the opposite of what I usually do and be just
Get more loosen up a bit.
I don't really see the point in encouraging people to loosen up. There's this thing that I hear a lot art teachers say, especially to students who are very, what we would call tight, like drawing everything very carefully and slowly and in a very kind of meticulous way. I think of sort of Holbein and Van Eyck as very tight painters, let's say, and I think that can have a real beauty. I'm Roma and I'm an artist. I live in the south of France. I'm originally from the UK. I trained in Florence when I was younger, and now, I'm kind of just continuing to paint on my own and exhibit in France.
You're basically finished?
Well, I'm kind of moving on to all of this anatomy here now.
Okay, so are you always this quick?
Not really. I do a lot of landscapes quite quickly, but portraits, no, not much. Not for a while.
I'm never looking to flatter. If anything, with self-portraits, I deliberately look for a deprecating angle. My name's Duncan Shoesmith. I'm an artist. I paint a lot of portraits, and there's nothing more. I've done the acrylic underpainting. Block it in, and then a bit of fine-tuning and sort out temperatures.
Do you always do acrylic block in first?
Yeah, that's when there's real freedom to, you see a pattern of shadow maybe above his forehead just to do a wash over. You're starting to learn the information of the face without necessarily a big commitment.
And then now you're transitioning into oils.
Yeah.
And you've got 2 types of yellow?
No.
Oh, sorry, white?
No,
2 types
just
of white?
titanium white. That's just yellowed a little bit because of the yellow lights in here.
Right, yeah. So no lead white for you?
No. Can you still get that?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
I admire Sargent greatly in many ways, but I do sometimes find his brushwork and his bravura too obnoxious for my personal taste. When I paint with thoughtfulness, and I suppose I'm not a showy or a flashy person. So when I see an artist who I know has enormous talent slapping on these huge marks for the sake of being painterly, it sets my teeth on edge a little bit. I'm Ruth. I consider myself to be a portrait painter. I'm a professional. I've been painting for 11 years and I recently moved to London. The angle I'm looking at today, there's a lot of shadow and not very much light, so I'm kind of inching my way out of the shadows towards the lights. I always tell people every painting has an ugly stage, whether you start well or start badly. So you try and push into the ugly stage as quickly as possible, and then you can spend the rest of the session coming out of the ugly stage.
And just sort of repairing the picture almost?
Not repairing. I think you're never going to get everything spot on right from brushstroke to brushstroke from beginning to end. So it's a corrective process all the way through, but that's the way it should be.
My plan is I'll paint and then pray. I'm into triangles, I'm into diagonals. These triangles are unfolding to here. From that to that to that. I'm Charlie Pickard, I'm a portrait artist and oil painter. I read this thing where the right angle to the diagonal is the best place to put a focal point, which is what that is.
What's another triangle, really?
Yeah, well, because it creates more triangles, yeah.
Yeah, and you love
More
a triangle.
I'm telling you, triangles, the only shape that exists.
Squares don't exist.
The two triangles.
How about circles? Circles.
Many more triangles.
I mean, you can't really build a circle out of a triangle, though.
You can, though. Just do 100,000.
It would never be a perfect circle. It would all made up of little straight lines.
The contradiction of life. I know, it's really deep. In the style I was taught, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't exactly feel right to me, and I don't know exactly why, but I was chasing something. I went on a lot of different workshops with a lot of different painters, and I realized that really challenged my preconceived notions about what good painting was, and that kind of opened it up for me to look a bit more at what I like, and usually I like really strong colors. It's largely landed on me painting pretty high-key paintings with a lot of chroma, which is maybe not the often given advice.
In my degree, I didn't really get taught any painting at all. So it's really sort of self-taught, I suppose, dabbling in oils. But it's only really in the last couple of years where I've done some workshops, trying to learn a lot, really. Just things like the sight size, fat over lean, any of these things I'd never even heard of before. So I feel like a big sponge at the moment, just trying to learn as much as I can technically. I'm Anna Stevens. I'm a graphic designer, but I did originally study fine arts quite a few years ago now, about 20 years ago.
Would you say the personality that you see is important to the picture, or are you just simply looking for shapes?
I think I try and get a sort of a sentiment, particularly I think in the eyes and the mouth. For me, I get kind of quite a sense of gaze and mood. So if I feel like I can connect to that, then that gives me something to build on.
At the moment, you're just using raw umber?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, just use that as a base, and then just using the Q-tips or just a cloth to wipe away, just to try and get my shadow shapes.
When I left school, I knew I wanted to be a painter, and I didn't want to take the university route. I'm Patrick. I'm from Surrey originally. I've been in Barcelona for the past 3 years nearly. I've just finished up my studies there back in April, and now I'm kind of out in the world trying to start a kind of path down the painting route, really.
Patrick, how's it going?
Slippy. Oil might have come to the top.
What brand paints are you using?
Michael Harding.
Is that your favourite?
It's generally what I use, yeah.
So do you normally use a vertical palette then?
No, do you know what, I don't, but since I'm using this today,
yeah,
and it's working out quite well.
Okay, but do you like that it's transparent? Because I find that quite challenging.
Yeah, it is quite challenging actually. I'm kind of used to it at the moment. I'm working on a big glass one. I've got a piece of glass this big, and just mix a load of paint on that. So I've kind of got used to it. But it can be a bit weird.
Drawing underlies my work, and I think painting is secondary. My name is Jason Walker. A painter. I live in Penzance in Cornwall. I'm a self-taught artist, and I've been painting for some time now.
Lots of people would like to just cover the canvas first, but you seem to work in little patches of colour. So why is that?
Building my flavour, if you like, kind of getting the balance between what I'm trying to do, finding my way around, finding form. I taught myself to paint through trial and error, making many, many mistakes. Part of me always thinks, what would have happened if I had been taught to paint? It's difficult at times because things just go wrong and you don't know why. It's always an unknown when I start a new piece. I've got no ABC.
How long would this normally take you if you had all the time?
A few months, really.
So today is a bit of a challenge.
Today, to say the least.
Sometimes I do like the challenge of just the one day painting, and whatever happens in the day, I mean, that's all the prima.
Yeah.
That is, and that's the beauty. I think there's a lot of beauty in that. But then whenever you do an all prima painting, there's always that feeling like, oh, if I'd only had one more hour, or if I'd had one more day.
My name is Anastasia Pollard. I've been a figurative and portrait painter for many, many years, probably over 30 years. I'm very committed to portrait painting and figure painting from life as much as possible. I studied in both Florence, Italy, and in America. Been very lucky to get the education that I have, and I'm lucky to carry on that with teaching.
So what are you doing right now? Because you know you like to work in a limited palette?
Yes, I call this Zorn Plus, because I've got, it's basically Zorn, but I do have added a couple little extra.
What are the extras?
Extra paste. Well, one I think I'm probably not going to use at all but I have added raw sienna, olive green, and a burnt umber.
So you're breaking the rules of the Zorn palette.
Yeah, it's basically no longer Zorn. I think very specifically about the palette that I use beforehand, and I do spend some amount of time making color studies and pre-mixing. So while I'm painting, I can think more about mark making.
The interaction between creativity and technique, as I see it, are hand in hand. But for me, sometimes if I overthink things too much or get too technical with it, then I lose some of the creativity. So I've tried in my practice to really reduce almost the cognitive element of thinking about the technique, although the technique is there. So I practice a lot to make it almost like muscle memory rather than being more of an analytical thing. My name is Stuart Beckett. I'm an artist based in Southampton. My art practice mainly revolves around figurative work, both landscape and obviously the human form.
The more I paint, the more I don't understand what I'm seeing, the more I'm discovering. Therefore, painting helps me to look and helps me to keep looking. Nathan Ford from London, live in South Wales. I have a wife, 2 kids, a house, a car.
I find quite interesting because a lot of people are using these fancy brushes, and you've got some pretty, I think they are Taylor & Rowney, aren't they?
I've got some cheap ones from Amazon recently. But the thing is, you've got the shape, and if you take care of them, they'll last for a certain period of time, and then they'll lose their shape, and I'll use them for different things. So for the precision stuff, you've only got a little while with a good shape brush.
Yeah.
And from my experience, the expensive brushes don't hold their shape any longer. So
it doesn't really matter to you?
I don't have them in terms of expensive and cheap brushes. I have them in terms of new to old.
Yeah, because that one looks a little bit more worn,
this one's
right?
been battered. So I'll use that for certain things. And if I'm going right into my point, then I'll use the really sharp one. The board I'm working on today is an old still life that didn't work. But in working on an old still life that didn't work, you land up picking up some of the old composition and it becomes part of the new. So it's not quite a new painting, even though it is. It's still got remnants of what was. So every crash still feeds into something new.
Painting in a little bit of a blind panic at this point. Painting a little bit over here, and a little bit over here, and a little bit over here.
It's slippy still. Do you mind skipping me and coming back in a sec? It's kind of the crisis of confidence kicking in, isn't it?
This stage is always fun.
I've got the shakes. I'm tired. The painting currently is in that delicate place between a car crash and something that's really quite good. And it can go both ways at this point. And I realize as I'm trying to concentrate, the line between success and failure is so finite.
Nathan scraped off his painting just right before I went to talk to him.
So talk to us about the most relatable thing that every artist experiences.
A car crash.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't live without car crashes if you're an artist.
Generally, if you've got lots of time, you can put things away, come back, put them away, come back. But when it's one hit, it's one event, you've got somebody in front of you. You win or you lose. As soon as you think you've got it, you've lost it. As soon as, it's that presumptuous thing, as soon as you think you've got the tools to succeed, you've got the formula, you realize you've duped yourself again because you're ignorant, you're a fool, and you don't have the answers. I've been battling with this for hours, and now it's a relief. I don't have to worry because it's done. You know, I had a nice lunch, I had a nice trip, I saw some other people paint, and actually, I'm all right with failure. That's my life.
He started in a bit of a chaotic way. He sort of begun with a mass and just getting a bit of paint to flow, and then he went in and kind of brought out the structure and the geometry. And I think that he has had it kind of in good control.
I thought it was a very risky choice, the way that she keyed the darks in the painting, because you have very chromatic lights and she's keyed the darks very light. So she's going to darken the lights to make them more chromatic, but then risk to lose the light effect.
From the get-go, he has been very sort of smart, just in terms of the scale, in terms of the format, and just in terms of how he has been building the portrait. From just a very kind of rough scaffolding with Umber, but very quickly getting into the component of tiling, using color and value to model the form. He didn't wait too long on that. And that also, I think, saves him time now in the end.
He's got a very different way of painting compared to everyone else. He always starts in acrylic first. You can see all of his edges are really sharp, lots of tiling going on. And I think that's a risky choice because you really need to make sure that your drawing is perfect. You can't lose any edges, you can't soften things if you're not sure. Anna is the opposite of Duncan. She's much more on the soft edge, and I hope that she'll be able to pull some focus, pull that viewer into the picture.
I've been really enjoying to see her painting process through the day, and I think it has been a really good strategy in terms of how she's been building the portrait. I'm a little bit concerned with some anatomical questions that are still lingering. Like, for example, the position of the corner of the mouth is just a little bit too far over, so there's a little bit of asymmetry there. So if she could get that in place, that's going to make a big difference.
So Romar was basically done with his portrait after an hour. He was so quick. And I worry that he spent the rest of his time not really improving onto the picture. It's almost like his own speed is holding him back.
I think he took a big swing. I love a big swing.
Yeah.
If he pulls it off, it's going to be fantastic. When I talked to him about it, it seemed that he was on the verge of it going one way or the other.
Yeah.
With Anastasia, color harmony is a guarantee. You know from all her work that you're going to expect that, and we see it here in this one as well. Really, it's just about whether she gets a clever enough likeness and a nice enough sort of attitude in the portrait.
When I spoke to him, he said it normally takes months and months to finish a picture.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the struggle for him to be able to really tie everything together in just 4 hours.
Out of this beautiful and really impressive group of paintings, all done just in 4 hours, there are 3 that really calls my attention. And that is Patrick, Ruth, and Anastasia.
In the top 3, I'm looking for things that are like a holistic statement, that it looks like every part of the canvas has been considered and that there's a solution for each part of the problem. So composition, color, design, likeness. Romer's likeness pushed him through into my top 3. Ruth's looks like a complete thought from start to finish, and Anastasia's portrait.
So my top 3, I would say Ruth's picture. I think she was just very consistent throughout the whole process. Patrick is also a strong one. Romer's portrait, he was just strong from the get-go, and it didn't really change. Okay, well, it's a tricky choice. It's a tricky choice.
I feel like it's clear.
Yeah? You think it's a clear winner? What do you think, Cornelia?
I'm always up for a fight.
Should we do a democratic vote?
All right.
I think we're going to have to wrap this up and choose a winner.
First of all, we argued as long as Neil would allow us to, which was not a long time that we were given. But we came to a conclusion unanimously. No, actually, it wasn't unanimous. We came to a conclusion democratically. But yeah. I want to say this: there's no competition that's like easy to enter. We've all done them at some point in our career. It's a nerve-wracking thing, and then you set everybody up together, and then you wait on some announcement about who won. It's terrible. But here we are doing it. I want to say personally, like, thank you so much for like putting in all of the effort to travel here and to work as hard as you have to make this competition really, really good. And I'm now going to pass the buck to Lizette and let her announce who won.
All right. So after much deliberation, we've decided the winner is Ruth. If you want to come out. Well done. But it was not an easy choice. So thank all of you for all your hard work. It was really, really cool to see everyone's work. Thank you. Thank you. Really beautiful portrait. Thank you. Did you have fun?
I did, yeah.
Yeah? Oh, cool.
Today has been a lot of fun. At first I was very, very nervous, but I remember that it's just like painting with friends. And there's a very good collective energy. And we're all sort of at the same goal, just enjoying painting from life.
I think you always have an idea of whether an event has been a success just by the feeling in the room, just by the camaraderie, the bonds that have built up in the room. You can tell when everyone's happy in a room. You can tell when everybody's enjoyed an event and everyone's getting on. And yeah, I think it's been great today.